from Abuja.
It's all about the human struggle to raise the level of living. That's what it's all about. I'm Magnus Packle, and this is Magnus Packle GVA. I appreciate you being a part of our show. In view today, Africa's economic growth. It is getting stronger, but is it empty growth? As jobs are still hard to come by. We will have a panel to discuss this. But before that, let's take a quick view on road transportation in Africa. Any nation looking to speed economic development would need an effective road transport system. Roads deliver economic and social benefits by connecting firms to markets, local, regional, or international. Roads also enable individuals to reach water, fuel, schools, clinics, jobs, and relatives. Many African countries have very poor road networks. A trip in the rainy season in many African countries can leave you stuck in the mud, just as we see here in Uganda, for a simple trip from one town to the other. The story is virtually the same across Africa, with all kinds of challenges when trying to transport goods to markets or trying to get people to do business across geographic space. And this adds considerably to transport costs and the general cost of trade. According to the World Bank, fewer than 30% of African roads were paved in 2010. Investment in road infrastructure has the capacity to stimulate and enhance the productivity of the economy in both the short and long term. It has an investment that has a multiplier effect throughout the economy and can generate lasting economic, social, and environmental benefits. According to the World Bank again, a 10% drop in transport costs could result in a 25% increase in total African trade. With our population centers separated by vast distances, a good road transport infrastructure is critical to sustaining African communities and growing our economies for improved international competitiveness. Still to come, Africa's fruitless growth. But up next, in our hidden economics for you, the BlackBerry craze for African women. Most men have lost their wives and girlfriends to the BlackBerry phone. It doesn't matter what is happening to RIM, its manufacturer. The BlackBerry phone is a hit in Africa for women. Indeed, it has now become a special assistant to most women. It now seems no woman leaves home without it. Why? It's instant messaging system. That's why. Some people just call it the ping or BB. It seems to give power to the user for breaking news, gossip, or simply just keeping track of events with loved ones, friends, and others. And the sound of the pinging is magic. You ought to just see a woman in action when on the BB. This special assistant is good, but you have to be careful before it controls you altogether. Indeed, some men needing more time for their golf game or even business now make sure to buy their wives or girlfriends a BlackBerry phone as a dependable partner that can keep her adequately occupied when he is not around. In the absence of a second job or other important family activity, the pinging is good. But when you start to forget the value of many useful things in your life because of the pinging, then your little BlackBerry phone is probably doing more than may be necessary. Our hidden economics for you. Africa's economy is rising, but is poverty falling? Africa's GDP growth rate has averaged about 5% a year for the last decade, except during the 2008 to 2009 global economic crisis. Indeed, since then, it has picked up from where it stopped. But has this growth worked to create jobs and reduce poverty? The poverty rate in sub-Saharan Africa still averages just under 50%, declining by just about 1% a year from 1999 when it averaged near 60%. In the past, even when the poverty rate fell, we typically found that the number of poor people rose because of rapid population growth. Is the trend changing now? What has been clear is that jobs are not being created at a good enough pace. This has been a jobless growth era. What we see is empty growth. We need answers. Well, with me in the studio today are two economic experts to discuss why jobs are not being created in sub-Saharan Africa as economic growth has averaged above the population growth rate. We have Dr. Reuben Jaja, who is president of Africa USA Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Washington, D.C., and a member of the U.S. Federal Reserve Shared National Credit Program, the SNC. Dr. Jaja received his graduate education at the University of California, Los Angeles, and the John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. We also have Dr. Wole Akinwumi, who is currently an advisor to the Nigerian Minister of Trade and Investment. Before this, he was senior lecturer in international economics, finance, and statistics at University Campus Suffolk in the United Kingdom. Dr. Akinwumi holds a PhD in economics from Strathclyde University in Glasgow. Dr. Jaja, I'm going to start with you. And you have done a lot of work around the world, and I'm sure you've seen the headlines about the so-called jobless growth, where we have, as I said, the growth rate averaging above 5% across Africa. And yet, we are not seeing the kinds of jobs created as we would have liked to see. What do you think is happening? Is the growth rate just not strong enough? We believe the population growth rate is somewhere in the 3% range. GDP growth rate, 5% range. That means we have a real per capita GDP growth rate of about 2%. Perhaps that's not strong enough. What do you think?
Well, thank you so much. What is happening is not only peculiar to Nigeria. It's a global trend. In fact, the International Labour Organization just showed that more than 75 million of youths are unemployed. So it's becoming a concern as to the stability and political stability of nations. But what is happening is very fundamental, and it cut across the entire globe. But what we have here now is a phenomenon that many experts are watching, because growth are being perceived in terms of development in certain economic growth poles. But then it doesn't translate into actual jobs, which is where it impacts the citizenry of the world.
Yes.
And in Africa, so what we're seeing here now is a phenomenon that is emerging that obviously have caused a lot of economic concern with creative destruction or a transformation process. Because you find out that things are happening, but it's not happening in the usual way that we are used to measure in terms of how many people have we been able to listen. So Nigeria is not, or Africa as a whole, is not an exception.
Dr. Akinwumi, you were a professor in the United Kingdom. And it used to be, when we were learning economics in those days, that they said that the demand for labor was a derived demand. Mm-hmm. So we've got this supposedly strong GDP growth rate across the board, about 5% or so. Where's the derivative here. There's no derived demand this time. Is the thing has ended?
Yes, I think this is principally why it's giving everyone a lot of concern and a bit of sleepless night, because you will expect growth to have a bit of to have a link with jobs. The question is, when you look at the different countries in the world, it is true, it is a global problem. My biggest concern is the preparedness of each country. You know, yes, for America, for instance, they've got the wherewithal, they can intervene in whatever form. You know, they went straight into their, for instance, the auto industry. They supported that. They went into the bank institutions.
But even that is not working well.
Yes, so at least in the life of the president of America now, it has produced at least a bit of a few million jobs. Yeah. Because growth is about production. Yeah. So producing what? The interlinks with that is a problem of distribution, which is not really, it's not something that's readily come to the fore. But the issue of distribution is the biggest problem. Because if I don't have money in my pocket, as an ordinary person in the street, I cannot spend. And if I can't spend, business cannot expand. If they don't expand, you cannot create jobs. That is why I said there are a lot of things involved here. There are issues of equity, distribution of income, issues of corruption.
My point is that there's not good income distribution here, or that there's not strong growth that is strong enough to achieve the 10% growth rate in China.
No, it would be foolhardy to think that every single economy will grow the way China did.
Well, India is growing at near 8%. Nigeria is growing well over 6%.
But if you look at Nigeria, I think in the 2010, 2010, 11, I think, and 9 as well.
Averaging close to 7% over the last 10 years.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. Then what is why is it that there is a difference between us and those countries? It means that in China or India, if a penny is put on ground, a kobo is put on ground, that penny goes to do what it's supposed to do. Yeah. And that is the thing that can produce the growth that you're expecting. That's the thing that can create the job that you want it to create. For instance, look at the property market in Nigeria. There are so many empty houses in Abuja for today, for instance. What are those houses doing? Who are they employing? Who is occupying them? Which money? You know, it's just the old circle of income. If you hold a bit of it down, it's not going to do what is expected to do. So it's only when we are fair with the way economics, you know, you only need to tamper with an aspect of economics. It fights back. There's nothing we can do about it.
If I might add very quickly that the question is, what is powering that growth in China?
Yes, that's the question.
So if you look at it very closely, you find out that it is in the manufacturing sector. Yes. Gives them a whole bag. But there are certain preconditions that must exist before the manufacturing sector can thrive.
That's why
now, can you compare? Yes. Can you now compare that to Africa? No, you can't, because one, when you look at the power infrastructure, you look at all that is needed to support the manufacturing and processing sector, taking us away from our raw materials or commodity level into a processed and manufactured goods. It's not there. We are still at the rudimentary stage to put it and target it towards growth in the manufacturing and industry, as well as the promotion of our industries and employment jobs for the workforce.
But that's why I'm tempted to call it empty growth. Is it growth in fat cells or growth in muscle? Because, okay, take the case of Nigeria, for example. 7% growth rate is not that bad. It's close to India. I mean, averaging over the last 10 years. But I often wonder, where is that growth coming from in Nigeria, for example? Is it coming from manufacturing? Obviously, probably not. You know, maybe agriculture. And even that, I wonder sometimes, you know, are we now hiring many more people in agriculture, or more tools are coming to be deployed in agriculture, more fertilizers, better inputs? Perhaps, I don't know. But I like to try to see where the growth rate is coming from to get to 7%. Because if we do know that, then we will see whether those sectors are capable of hiring people. My suspicion is that the growth is coming. I think that the structure of the Nigerian economy has changed dramatically.
Yes.
That the retail that used to be maybe like 14% of GDP is now close to 20% of GDP. And everybody's selling something in Nigeria, from what I observe. and you're not going to make a whole lot of money there as you would make if you were in manufacturing. And that's why, let me jump right away to this issue, because you brought it up, Dr. Jaja. The people cannot manufacture stuff if they don't have money, loans.
Yes.
Is Africa able to do we have enough loans that are going out to business people in Africa so that they can have manufacturing and other things that will hire people?
But we don't. We don't. In fact, based on my readings, you find out that the allocation or access to capital, the inequality in the distribution of the capital to entrepreneurs or businesses is so inequitable and shameful, because almost 90, in fact, in some cases, 90%, some 70%, depending on the country, do not have access to credit.
Absolutely.
So until we formulate a policy where there's an intervention program using the central bank to guide the lending behavior of banks, to at least focus on the small, medium enterprises, which is where we expect jobs to be created, and then give them capital, and then provide a basis for protecting that capital. But again, we have to be careful, because one, banks make loans with the expectation that the loans will be paid back. So if there's a public policy pushing them to make these loans, chances too is that they may likely make bad loans. So there must be some safety net that the government must have to provide, whereby some guarantees are out there, because banks oftentimes shy away from any risk that they know might wipe out their capital.
So in closing, I need statements, from you as to what can we do to raise we're back to where we started, to raise the economic growth rate across the board, across Africa, well north of 5%.
Harmonization of our infrastructural requirements. The reason why others succeeded, say for example like the European Union, you have at least 5 countries there that served as the engine of that union. France, Germany, and the rest, with powerful infrastructure that they were able to diffuse to others.
Of course, I think what Doctor has said is quite, if we don't get it right at all, we can't get it right anywhere. In terms of what you have said, sir, the infrastructure, we need to get that right. We need to get the standard right. Because if the standard is not good, we can't force it on anyone. We can't force it within Nigeria. That's why we go abroad to get our things. We can't force it within the region, neither can we force it on the continent. And then we need to move our politics to economics in terms of the regional arrangement as well.
Focus on the economics.
Yes.
Dr. Jaja, I want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for checking with me. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
so much.
Thank you. Is this immeasurizing growth that we are seeing in Africa? Real GDP growth rates are strong across Africa, but jobs are not being created as many would expect. And the poverty rate is still high, at an average of near 50%. What is happening? Immeasurizing growth typically means economic growth that brings misery. Well, I don't think that misery is increasing in Africa. But I also don't see jobs being created for the people. What we have is fruitless growth. Now, why are jobs not being rapidly created? The reason to me is simple. The 5% average real GDP growth rate across sub-Saharan Africa is simply not strong enough. It is creating jobs, all right, but it is not creating jobs fast enough to strongly outpace the growth in population, which is at about 2.5%. This means that in terms of impact on the average person living in Africa, the real GDP growth rate is only about 2.5%. That's just not good enough. Of course, what is happening is that some countries on the continent are growing much faster than the average. If you look over the past 10 years, real GDP growth has averaged about 7% or even better for many countries, including Angola, Ghana, Mozambique, Nigeria, Rwanda, Sierra Leone, and Uganda. Even so, prospects for jobs in these countries are still bleak. The potential for strong economic growth exists in Africa because a demographic dividend is here, with about 70% of Africans under 35 years of age. However, this could also portend a demographic disaster if this population is not fruitfully engaged and they become free radicals. Now back to the seemingly impressive economic growth rate of 5%. Well over 30% of the growth has been driven by increases in resource and commodity prices. For example, oil prices rose from less than $20 a barrel in 1999 to more than $145 a barrel in 2008. Prices for minerals, grains, and other raw materials have also soared during this period due to rising global demand. Unfortunately, benefits from commodity and natural resource revenues don't transmit quickly to average citizens. And in addition, poor governance often undermines the strength of the benefits. Manufacturing in Africa is decimated by cheap imports from China. What Africa must note is this: our jobs are being shipped out every time we export unprocessed goods. If African policymakers want to see a robust labor market, then at least 50% of the natural resources and commodities being shipped out would have to be processed in Africa. The processing activity with its strong and positive spillover results is the engine we need for driving Africa into a great era of promise, job growth, and prosperity. I'm Magnus Pakol, and that's my view.